Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. If you're new here, my name is Aisha. This is the Dream Life Design podcast. I still have to get used to the fact that I changed the name. I am super excited that you are tuned in because in this episode, we are going to be talking about a topic that, as women that want to live life on our own terms, this is super, super important to address. And it's essentially talking about how we can, one, recognize self sabotage. So the internal barriers that hold us back and what can we do about it once we realize that this is something that is stopping us from chasing our dreams. And I think that the fact that I can talk about it is also a moment of me being vulnerable towards you guys and just keeping it real and like being honest about things that come up. And I think it's super important to talk about because if you want to live out your passion, if you want to live a purposeful life, a lot of it is kind of like, once you find your purpose, you need to put it out there and you need to be visible and you need to talk about it with a certain confidence. And I think this is where, for a lot of women, it becomes a very difficult thing. So I think it's great to talk about also because at the root of this, it's just generally a self esteem thing. And I had to go through that realization and that breakthrough to really take myself to the next level. So, of course, there's a big part of it. It's kind of like, okay, so you're on YouTube, you're making videos, you're making podcasts, people are listening to it. But then once you make it into a business, once your passion project becomes a business and you have to like stand behind the things that you say and you have to put yourself forward as a business person, I can definitely tell you that this is just a different level of like facing internal barriers and having to work through resolving them. So I'm very excited to be talking about it. I am also hoping that through talking about it, that you also can reflect back on yourself and like how do these things manifest for you? Because at the end of the day, this is what it's about. It's about you and how you are going about living out your passion and like what are the internal barriers that are holding you back and how can we work through that so that they don't hold you back and that you can reach that freedom that you desire. So let's get into it. Why now? Why talk about this now and not later? So I think what is happening, if you pay attention in society, what you see happening is that at first, if we look at people like if I look at my mom, for example, or aunts, like just are the generation before us, they really thought that esteem needs were the things that are important. And if you remember, like some time ago, I spoke about the pyramid of Maslow and that there's different level of needs. Esteem needs is the one to last at the top. And in this need, it's really about the fact that as women, we felt the need to also achieve um, we felt the need towards achievement. So concretely, that meant that women also saw that, hey, there are a lot of men in leadership position. We also want to be in leadership position. We also want to feel that level of achievement. And why not? Because we work really hard for it. So it was really about achieving things, about gaining respect, about gaining more responsibility and being in those leadership positions. Great. And what is happening now is that there is a different shift. So above esteem needs, we have self-actualization needs. And a lot of women, through fighting for getting in leadership and getting up there, they started to also realize like, yeah, we can get up there, but then we end up being in environments that maybe are not super inclusive. And is this really what we want deep down? And the shift that is happening is that people are saying, no, we don't care about esteem, or esteem is great, but what we want is really to feel like we are reaching our maximum potential. So now we are shifting from wanting respect and wanting achievement towards wanting to feel like I'm getting the most out of my potential, I'm meeting my purpose, and I'm living the life of my dreams. And that is the self-actualization needs, which is at the top of the pyramid. And the interesting thing here of why it's important to talk about internal barriers is that when we talk about esteem, It's okay to show up and put up a facade and pretend that you feel confident and pretend that you feel like, you belong in this space, etc. Like you can pretend your way through until you reach that high position or whatever. But if we think about the fact that self-actualization, it actually is asking something a little bit more of us. It's asking us to hold up a mirror to ourselves and to look at our behavior and to ask ourselves, what are the ways that we are holding ourselves back? Because if we talk about reaching your potential, it means like, even going higher. And you cannot reach your potential without addressing the internal limitations that are happening within you. If you are holding yourself back from pursuing your dream because you have these stories that are going on in your head, this is holding you back from reaching your potential. So this is why it's super important to talk about these internal limitations, because previously and throughout history, it's really been more of an external barrier thing, right? So there was like women just, that wasn't their place and we weren't given those opportunities. And now people are more aware about this and those opportunities are being created more compared to previously. But I think also we need to acknowledge that there's just a shift in terms of what we want for ourselves. So that's why it's super important to address the internal barriers that we face. So I want to tell you a little bit of a story of how I came across this topic for the first time and realized that this was really like the biggest challenge that I would also face. So when I did my master's in entrepreneurship, and for your master, of course, you have to write a master thesis. And my master thesis was on entrepreneuring women, and I specifically researched the context in which they have to operate, and that was established to be mostly male-dominated spaces. So entrepreneurship, of course, is also quite male-dominated. And I was very interested in understanding how do these women like go about being in those male-dominated spaces. And the interesting thing that I found was that these women said, well, first of all, the reason why I went into entrepreneurship was because I no longer wanted to be in spaces where I was the minority. I wanted to really, become a solopreneur and then create my own community and connect with other women that were also on the same journey, which honestly was really inspirational to me. And when talking about success, like what are the things that hold you back? Almost all of these women said that for them, it was no longer about the external barriers because they already removed themselves from that situation. Now they were in a situation in which for them to like grow their business, for them to put their business out there, for them to talk about their purpose, for them to push their business forward, they were just hindered by their own internal ceiling, their own internal barriers. So feeling like it's not their place, feeling like they have to like be more in the background, feeling like, if they put themselves forward as business women, then they won't be liked because, hey, if you're a businesswoman, then, you come out there and talk and people are like, who is this girl? So the interesting thing was that even in research, it's very well known that women entrepreneurs face both internal barriers and external barriers. And those internal barriers are very important to address, especially if, like, as I just said, like you want to pursue your passion and you feel like you have a mission in the world. A big part of that is like communicating that mission and telling people about it and like selling your offering and selling your service. And how are you going to do that if in the back of your head you tell yourself that this is not your place because you're a woman? And one of the key things that I took away from this research was that I also knew already from talking with these women that were also, most of them were older than me, that there would come a point that I would have to face those internal barriers. And I've been reflecting lately and I realized that honestly, throughout this journey, I have 100% been facing those barriers. And even though like there are moments that I don't let them hold me back, there are a lot of moments as well that I am held back by the things and the stories that I've told myself. So I hope that this resonates with you. And I think as women, of course, let's establish that everybody goes through this, like both men and women have limiting beliefs, but it's proven that women have way lower expectations of good things happening in their lives. And we are the ones that are really in the minority when we enter these spaces that are like so male dominated, like entrepreneurship. So before we talk about how to break through this, let's first establish like what are the top 3 limiting beliefs that women face, because honestly there are quite a lot, but there are 3 that are really prevalent within everyone according to research. The first one is that I'm invisible, meaning that you assume that you have to be in the background. You cannot take up space. It's not really your place to say certain things or do certain things. And also assuming that your opinion doesn't matter. So this is that one. And I have 100% dealt with this. And I honestly still deal with this till this day. I'm happy to be aware of it because I know when certain situations trigger me or when my reaction is to like, I want to be in the background, I know where this is coming from now. The second one is I'm not good enough. Do you recognize that one? So assuming that what you have to say is not as valuable as what other people have to say, telling yourself that you need to be perfect in order to put yourself forward, saying that you're a fraud. So dealing with imposter syndrome, feeling like really inadequate when you have to like be the face of a movement or be the face of your service, and also just comparing yourself with other people. But at the core of all of these things is really the belief deep down that I'm not good enough. 100% deal with that as well. I am a perfectionist and I'm working so hard to, get rid and like just let that belief go that I need to know something at 100% in order to add value to someone. This is completely not true. And even though I know it's not true, it doesn't feel that way. So it's really about, you know rationally what's true, but also like what is the belief that you have and how does it hold you back? And the last one is that I'm alone. And this one is really something that I found very interesting. And it's mostly like I feel like it's just disconnection and assuming that you're on your own, you have to figure things out on your own, you have to do it by yourself, there's no one to support you. Why are these 3 top beliefs super important to address? If you want to live life on your own terms, you can imagine how believing that you are not good enough, believing that you are invisible, and believing that you have to do it on your own is completely going to hold you back from one, developing a passion. Because if you feel like you have to be perfect, like you're just going to stay paralyzed because you're not even going to get mobilized to try something and feel, etc. If you constantly compare yourself with other people, you are going to always think that what you're putting out there is less than. If you feel like what you're putting out there is less valuable than what other people are putting out there, like, how are you going to start a company? How are you going to be an entrepreneur if you have all of these deep rooted beliefs within you? So if we want to live out our potential, if we want to reach self-actualization, it's really important to understand where do these beliefs come from and how do we break through them. So where do they come from? It should be of no surprise to you at all. If we just look around you or just hear of people talk about women, there are some certain societal expectation, gender stereotypes, and also norms about what women should be doing, what our role is, and what our place is. And this is something that unconsciously is taught to us since we are actually kids, what are children allowed to play with, the way that people stereotype women's behavior. Like, women are supposed to be a bit more submissive and we're supposed to be like soft and we're supposed to be like all of these like less than things, whereas the guys are like put forward as like, they're strong, they're masculine, they're intelligent, da 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 da. And women, like, we just learn through all of these like expectations that other people put on us, and also like just how things are depicted in the media, that this is like our place. So our place is to be in the background, our place is to not lead, our place is to just like be there, while other people, men, are the leaders. They are the ones that are taking care of the family. They are the ones that are like, being that are entrepreneurs and businessmen, etc. Whereas actually, this is like completely doesn't serve you anymore. And even though you consciously don't agree with this, I also consciously don't agree with this. I know it makes no sense. Subconsciously, it translates into like these limiting beliefs that we start telling ourselves about who we are at our core and what our place is. And this one about what our place is, I 100% deal with this. And I sometimes like, I don't even engage in certain things because I'm like, this is not my place. And I had to become super aware of the fact that I kept telling myself, this is not my place. This is not your role, etc. To start working to a place where I just say, you know what? I need to acknowledge that this is just a limiting belief and I need to understand where this limiting belief is coming from. And this is just simply how I was socialized and the things that I saw growing up and the movies that I saw and the way women are portrayed. And oh, I'm a woman, so I'm supposed to act like this. And the other thing that I think 100% has an impact on this is representation and visibility. So when I look at some entrepreneurship magazines or when I look at, articles that are being written on entrepreneurs, a lot of it is just focused on men that are in tech, and there's very, very little visibility and representation of women that are in these roles. And this really paints a picture that is seems like this is not something we should be doing, or this is not something that a lot of women do. So then you feel like it's less normal for you to also participate in. So I really think that, all around externally, like we do get the cues ever since we are kids that this is not something that we should be doing. However, at the same time, we are awakening to the fact that there is more to putting ourselves in the box that other people have created for us. So if you are in the place where you're starting to, want more visibility and putting yourself out there because you really feel like, I want to live my passion, I want to like get the most out of my potential, congratulations that you are in a place of admitting that to yourself. And then the next step now is while you start going through that process of learning value creation, of like testing out your assumptions, doing market research, creating brand awareness, etc., be aware of when these limiting beliefs come up. And one thing my coach taught me now is asking yourself, like, what is the worst thing that could happen? And I think it's a very good question for you to also ask yourself. If you encounter a limiting belief, what is the worst thing that could happen? What if I become more visible? What is the worst thing that could happen here? And for me, like one of the things that I was like, and still I'm like, about is like people at my job finding out that I just like started a business and that I'm like doing these podcast videos on YouTube, etc. But then I'm like, you know what? This is my life. And like, I don't care if somebody is going to have a judgment about it. I mean, I do care and I'm like so scared, but I'm still going to do it because I don't want to like live a life in which I make myself small. And then in 5 years, I end up just being in this massive depression and like, not feeling like I just wasted my time consumed by the opinions of other people, which nobody actually gave, but it's just like, because I tell myself that this is not my role and this is not my place and I shouldn't be doing this, that I hold myself back. This is like the route to not go. The route to go is trying to break through these limiting beliefs. And how do we do that? If you remember, in season 2 of this podcast, like one of the first episodes was about how do you shift your identity through action. If you haven't listened to that one, go back and listen to it because I give a lot of in-depth information about how do you go about changing your behavior, changing your beliefs, changing basically your identity without like focusing on what should my identity be? Oh my God, I have these limiting beliefs, but just like taking small steps. And the first step to always take is becoming aware. So self-awareness is really your best friend when it comes to personal development. And I would say that the self-awareness process for me really started, I already knew kind of like, okay, I feel a bit awkward about doing this and I feel a bit like, but I didn't understand yet why that was. And I didn't understand, where that came from. So it was really like a process over time to kind of like constantly reflect back to myself, like when I would notice that situations would trigger me, asking myself, why is it actually triggering me right now? What is really at the core of this? So through self-awareness, also when I felt like I really want to do something, but I came up with like a million excuses about it, I would also start realizing when that was happening. And I would ask myself, like, what is at the core of this, and like just taking a step back, and like then I started to realize like what the limiting beliefs that I had were. So my limiting beliefs are in those top two as well. So the first one is that I'm invisible. Like my default is to want to be in the background because I feel like sometimes this is not really my place to like be that person that's so forward in the things that she has to say. Well, deep down, that's how I felt. I just felt like I want to say this, I want to help other people, but so just realizing like when those situations were coming up, I would just like try to understand. And of course, like it takes time to understand better. But once you know that you feel really motivated to do something and it's something that you really want, yet you are paralyzed, yet you hold yourself back, yet you come up with 1,000 excuses, guarantee that there are limiting beliefs underlying that. So you really need to understand when those moments come up, see it as an opportunity to grow. Because in the end, that is what it is. It's not an opportunity for you to feel bad about the limiting beliefs that you have. It's really the opportunity and the moment to be like, okay, so now I understand where this is coming from. And what is my next step? My next step is to just do little things. That's my approach. Do little things where I can like prove to myself that, this limiting beliefs it's not really true. And that's actually how I started to be more visible on social media. Because previously, before that, I was really like in this fear state of just thinking like, oh my God, like what is everyone gonna say? Like da 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 da. And then just like I started a YouTube channel. I didn't share with anyone on my Instagram. It was really kind of secret. So I just did that on my own just to kind of like show myself that, what is the worst thing that could happen? Like I ended up making, I think, 10 videos. I don't even know how many of them are still here. And one of them ended up having 10K views. And I was like, oh, or 8K, I don't know. I was like, oh, so nothing bad really happened. Something nice actually came out of it. And then when I started to like do it more, I got used to it and I was like more comfortable in my skin. And I started to also tell more people like, hey, yeah, I have a YouTube channel. So yeah, I would say like just taking little steps and like giving yourself the time that you need to make this breakthrough. Because at the end of the day, it's like years and years of socialization, and it's years and years of us believing a certain truth about ourselves. But one thing is undeniable. Again, if you want to live life on your own terms, you have to believe that you are worthy of this life. You have to believe that the things you have to say are going to help someone else. You have to believe that you are valuable. You have to believe that this is for you, And if you believe that it's not my place and it's not my role and I'm not good enough and da da da, like this is not helping you at all, And of course, you cannot break down all of these limiting beliefs in one day, but starting out with awareness and just observing your own behavior, understanding the situations that trigger you, and then challenging that belief, like what is the worst thing that could happen, is a great place to start already. And one thing that really helped me this year was also working with coaches and also going to therapy, because these places are really like, I'm here and I want to be here. And it's not really about skill anymore, because I know that I have the skill. I know that I have the ability to understand how I have to get something done and also execute on it. But it's really about throughout that process, like what is the self-talk that is going on in my head, and like how am I like just like super demotivated and full of anxiety and full of stress, and going back to like the things that trigger that and going and addressing those limiting beliefs. So I say that if you feel like you cannot do this on your own, you don't have to, I feel like there's only so much so far you can go on your own when it comes to like also addressing limiting beliefs. It's completely okay to have people around you that can help you and guide you. And that really goes to that third point. A lot of women feel like they have to do this on their own. You don't. What you have to do is surround yourself with like-minded individuals that are also going through that same process, because this is so powerful. Once you feel like your struggle is not something of you, but it's something that is all around women, it's also going to give you a boost and also going to make you feel like, yes, I can do this. And I can also uplift these women up together with me so that we can all achieve our maximum potential. So I say all of this to say that you are not alone when it comes to experiencing limiting beliefs that stop you from doing the things that you really want to do. However, once you realize that there is a limiting belief, you really have to ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice for this? So maybe I didn't phrase that right, but basically what I'm trying to say is, if I know that I have a limiting belief and it results in me just not taking action and me not going after the things that I want, I'm basically robbing myself of my dream life. You only have one life. We have all around 4,000 weeks to live. Do you want to live your life in fear? Do you want to live your life being held back by your own internal barriers? Do you want to live your life at the mercy of other people validating you? Do you want to live your life according to what society thinks you should do? Or do you want to, historically look at where we come from as women, look at the unique position that we are in now, and honestly just accept that you are in a great place to even be able to tackling these internal limitations and going for after what you want, and just giving yourself the time and the patience that you deserve to work through these things so that you can be the woman of your dreams and to live a purposeful life. So if you want to learn more about how do you break through these limiting beliefs, how do you design a life in a way where you feel like you are aligned with your values, your passion, and your purpose, and how do you start a purpose-driven business out of your side project, head over to the Instagram page at dreamlifedesign.lab. Connect with me on Instagram, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.